What's up, gamers? Welcome to Battle Mallet Podcast, episode 55. Zack Newcome at Warhammer Championship World Championship of Warhammer WCW Sunday. That title is way too long. It'll be shorter on the website. For anyone that isn't familiar, the Battle Mallet Podcast is the journey of three busy gamers playing games that they love, balancing life with those games, and making their way to the Nova Open Convention every year. My name is Jerod Johnson, and tonight I am joined by Jason Tabled Noob Murray.
Hello, and happy Thanksgiving week, because that's when
Yeah.
we're recording all of this.
Yeah, that's right. So this is going to be, well, I guess we're going to call it a mini-sode. It's probably going to be one of the shortest episodes that we ever record. So we got a hold of Zack Newcome. Many of you may be familiar with him through various forms of online play or played with him locally. So we got a chance to sit down with him and talk to him about his experience at the World Championship of Warhammer, I guess is what they were calling it. The Warhammer Champs, World Champs. I don't know. I've seen a million different things on a million different social media platforms. So anyway, it's the first ever of these. And definitely the first one for Warhammer Underworld. So we were excited to get the chance to talk to him. But I guess before we dive into that, anything to bring up, Jason?
Not a whole lot. Sorry, it's been a little radio silence, specifically with me. Work is insanely busy. Plus, we're encroaching on the holidays here, so really haven't had a lot of time. Real excited to get more into Death Gorge. We've had a couple of meetups. Believe it or not, I missed the last month of meetups. Like last week was the first time I was able to go, and that for our listeners never happens. I am pretty tried and true, at least on Monday nights, to go. So yeah, a lot of disruptions, but have had a couple of games, and in a future episode we can definitely get more in depth into what the current state of the meta is and what we've experienced here locally, but still going strong. And then I've been a little distracted because my 9-year-old has actually been playing games with me, and it's a whole different game, a game style that we don't talk about here, but that is Loricana. So that has taken up some free time, but it's really not free time because it's time with my children. So
that's right. It's more important than real free time.
Yes. And you've traveled a lot lately too. So
oh my gosh, I have been to the West Coast 3 times in the past 3 months. So work has been crazy. Life has been crazy. So I guess you now know what it feels like to not get to go play on Monday nights, since I never do. So Trace is not with us tonight, but I do want to give him a shout out for holding down the fort, for keeping things moving at our every other week Monday meetups here locally in the Raleigh-Durham area. And from what I can tell, like there are 4 or 5 regular Underworlds players that I have not even yet met in person now in our local community. And that's awesome. Like, I'm super excited. I'm not excited because I haven't gotten to play, but like, I'm excited that the game is legitimately growing in our community. So when Trace gets back and we record like our fuller Death Gorge review, current gaming state episode, we can dig more into what that's been like. But I definitely wanted to give Trace a shout out while he's not here. He's suffering at the beach on this Thanksgiving week. What a poor soul. Poor soul.
So suffering.
Yeah. So I guess, we'll keep it short and tight. So with that, we'll take a break. And when we come back, Zack Newcome will join us to talk about the WCW. And we're back. Thanks, Jason. You're the best. I thought we rehearsed this, but apparently not, because we don't rehearse anything. So we have Zack Newcome, also known as Zack Newcome on Discord. For anyone that has played virtually with him, he had the opportunity to go to the Warhammer Championships in Atlanta. He was representing the United States of America in the World Championship event. He had the opportunity to play Warhammer Underworlds. Otherwise, I don't know why we would have him on our show. But we just wanted to bring him on. We have played with him virtually online a lot, as I'm sure many of our listeners have. Anybody that is frequently playing online in the various virtual tournaments has probably had the opportunity to play against him. But we wanted to get him on to get his experience at the event and also give all of our listeners the opportunity to get to know him. So, welcome, Zach.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a pleasure. So, as we do for all of our guests, we're going to ask you a series of questions that's going to dig into some history. This is not intended as a therapy session, but if it turns into one, that's great. Um, so, we'll start with our first question, kind of a get to know you session here before we get into the event itself. And that first question is, what is your earliest or your favorite memory of board games? So, not war games, but board games from your childhood.
So I remember starting to play chess with my father for a, a pretty early on, probably around like 8 years old or so. And I remember losing every single game for like 2 years, and then I finally beat him at like age 10, and that was a fond memory. And I still play chess. I'm actually teaching my son how to play chess now.
Nice. Yeah, good for your dad. There's no easy wins in life.
Yeah,
So,
well,
Nope.
it's really nice that he let you win when you hit 10, but you
yeah,
know.
He couldn't beat me by 12.
Oh,
nice.
sure, sure. I play that same game with my kids. Oh, you beat me. Oh, that's
Yeah,
awesome,
yeah.
man.
That's cool. Yeah. That's I feel like there's probably a pretty big percentage of the gaming community that got their start in chess. Um so our second question is, how did you get into tabletop miniatures games? So avid Warhammer Underworlds player now, but at some point, probably not Underworlds when you got started. So what was that? What was that like?
So it was actually by happenstance. I worked with one of my good friends, Matt, and he introduced me to my local gaming group. We have a group of dads that will actually get together about once a month to just play regular old board games. And one of them introduced me to Underworlds. He had the Shadespire box, and we played a couple of games, and I really liked it. So I started picking up Underworlds, and I've been playing Underworlds ever since. And Unfortunately, he doesn't play anymore, but I continue to play it because I enjoy it, and that's how I got started.
So
Nice. So you're
did
oh,
you
go ahead.
fracture into any other like tabletop games after Underworlds then? Like did you pick up
No,
AOS or anything?
I haven't picked up any of the larger systems because I think my wife would probably have words for me if I bought any other like competitive games that I needed to collect things for.
Ah,
Partially because I don't have that much room to store a big army of several hundred miniatures for something like 40K or AOS, because I have a fairly sizable like regular board game collection over here as well.
That's
okay.
awesome.
Cool.
That's really really cool cuz I guess I'm a little envious cuz when I got into games it just snowballs and it's like Underworlds could be your gateway to this whole new life of plastic nonstop instead of every just couple months. But you
I
hold strong. You hold strong.
Yeah, it's admirable.
I do have a growing collection of D&D miniatures as well
Oh, there it
as
is.
some other stuff. So it hasn't stopped growing. It just hasn't mushroomed as much.
There you go.
There you go.
I like it. All right, so Underworlds is your miniature game of choice. What's your favorite warband?
Um, as always, I would be remiss to say if I didn't say Chosen Axes, I think there would be a riot somewhere.
Ah, yep.
I'm still a Chosen Axis fan, although I'm unfortunately they're not very competitive ever anymore. But that was my favorite warband for the longest time. I've been having a lot of fun with the let's see here, Sereni's Razors, and the Crimson Court here lately, which is the warband that I actually took to the World Championships of Warhammer event.
Cool. Yeah. I wonder. I mean, I've heard through the grapevine, Void Curse Thralls with Chosen Axes. I mean, Breakneck Slaughter. Is there, or is it just not enough?
Breakneck Slaughter, as much as I want that to work because they were originally supposed to be an aggro warband, the fact that your opponent can just, I'm going to push you off of this objective after your activation kind of kills the Chosen Axis a bit, especially if you draw those cards first round. Because you get one of those momentum tokens on you there, you're not standing on that objective anymore unless you have a push card in your hand as well.
Yeah.
So, but Void Curse Thralls, that one works. I have actually tried that one. It can actually hold a candle to a couple of the more competitive warbands right now if things go correctly for you.
Nice.
But you didn't want to risk it at Worlds. You were like, I like him, but not that much.
Not that much. Yeah.
You'd have been a hero.
I would have been a legend and a hero, but I kind of wanted to win at least one match.
That's fair. That's fair. Well, cool. Well,
is it really just their Inspire that gets in the way? Is that what it is?
In my opinion, yes, because once they Inspire, they hit like trucks. They're actually pretty accurate. Their movement's not terrible, and frankly, their faction ploys and upgrades are actually pretty good. Their objective deck is a bit rough as well because you only have 2 surges, and they both involve killing people. And there's pretty much only one good in-phase card, and that's Unstoppable Advance. And you don't want that in the first round because move 2, you're not getting into enemy territory. Sorry.
Move 2. Those old war bands, like they all hold a near and dear place in our heart, but their mechanics they just don't live up to the current mechanics that warbands are designed with.
Yeah,
power creep is a thing.
Yeah, that's all right.
Well, we don't have access to like the same cards anymore that we did when those warbands were around. So like, there's no just stacking all of the move upgrades and move ploys into one deck and yeeting your dwarves across the no man's land into enemy territory and wrecking face.
Like an Inspiration Strikes.
Or Inspiration Strikes.
As I reference my vampire deck that has all of the move shenanigans.
Yeah, but they're move 4, so
yeah,
it's a little different. Yeah. Inspiration Strikes and Blaze of Glory. Like,
right.
Where are those cards when we need them?
No kidding.
They're in Relic. There you go.
They are in Relic.
Yeah, they are. You could build one heck of a crazy deck with those
I can't even fathom. All right, well, before we get too far down this rabbit hole, we do want to hear about the World Championships of Warhammer. I kept getting thrown off on the social media by the hashtag because it was hashtag WCW, and I'm like, wait, is it 1997 and Hulk Hogan and Macho Man Randy Savage are like in vogue again? No, it's just they co-opted that acronym. Jason is shaking his head at me right now.
Like when you think
frankly surprised that no one made that reference at the event. I didn't hear that until now.
Oh my god! Well, that's because they're all young. They don't know.
But WCW, you go with Hulk Hogan and Macho Man. Like they are not WCW when I think WCW. That's WWF. Like,
well, they left
Sting,
WW.
They did.
All right.
They're not.
Okay. They're not iconic. It's fine.
Not iconic. Like Sting. I could,
Sting is okay. That's who I should have referenced. My bad.
There you go.
All right. As penance for that, Jason, I will cede the microphone to you to walk us through.
So
talk to Zach and.
So the championship, you get the nod, you get to go. So we'll just start with, how did you go selecting Crimson Court? Like, what drew you to that warband to take to the World Championship?
So, Crimson Court, they have a fairly solid stats block for them, so they're all more move 4. They're all 4 wounds, and they all have about the same defense characteristic. And because I took Void Curse Thralls with that deck, I was able to actually make Anais the same defense stat as everyone else right off the bat, which is primarily who I would Void Curse first. And then I was also anticipating a lot more of that ping meta that everyone has seen here lately. That I was actually surprised that there wasn't more people playing that ping meta there. And Crimson Court has a lot of heal cards and access to heal cards in their deck. So I was thinking, well, I can hit pretty hard. I can move pretty fast, so if somebody tries to hide from me, I can hopefully chase them down. And if I take a ping or two on the way in, I actually have the chance to heal it off before they have a chance to take the fighter out of action. And Crimson Court also has a fair bit of fairly passive scoring cards. So things like Death's Domain, Recovered Poise, Grave Lords can all be scored fairly consistently without having to do all that much into your opponent. And they also have a lot of cards that just score, like Spirited Attempt. And when you start mixing in the Void Curse Thrall cards, you have a pretty consistently scoring deck that you can actually score frequently. My average low score throughout the event was 9 glory. I only failed to score 9 glory once, and that was against Aman, the gentleman that won. So it was a very consistent scoring deck for me, and I actually only had a week to prepare it. So it was also surprise, you're going to Worlds. I was like, okay, well, I guess I needed a deck now. And this was one that I had been wanting to try, and I just painted up the Crimson Court. So that's kind of what motivated me to take them, was all of that.
Yeah, and you mentioned the void cursed thralls giving you the block, right? So Anais going to 1 block. What else drew you to build with that deck in Nemesis?
So the the Crimson Court has a ton of movement cards, or not a ton of movement cards, but several movement cards in their deck already that make them faster and be able to do extra moves. So I was running Lashed into Motion, which is make 3 move actions with a friendly Void Cursed fighter. If I drew Forced Movements and Quicksilver Advance in my first hand with Lashed Movements, I could literally just score a glory. And then the other thing that drew me to them was they can actually dish out some damage. They have damage upgrades. And those damage upgrades actually work with Void Cursed Assault. So one of my favorite moments in the tournament was I only had 1 fighter left. It was the start of the 3rd round. My opponent still had all of his fighters left. I won initiative. I made a charge. I took out Goral, and then was able to use Duval's Fiendish Lure to draw in Lupin, and then was able to kill him immediately with Void Cursed Assault for 2 damage. So all of these damage and movement upgrades and ploys really helped tie everything together, because after I charged, I wasn't done. I could still move around the board and be a threat to people, even though I had all of my fighters with charge tokens on them.
That's awesome. And the fact that you used Lure, Fiendish Lure, the spell reaction that I think most people don't even know exists on the back of Duval's card, is fantastic.
And Gorath's spell action as well. As long as you don't Void Curse Gorath, I mean, there's your ping right there. It's a range 4 ping 1 as long as you have a wounded fighter within 4 hexes of you. So you can literally heal one of your guys and do a damage to your enemy with that with that action. So it was like all of these things kind of pulled together to make this deck, and it was moderately successful. I had a really good first day. Kind of fell apart
No,
after then, though.
so yeah, so that leads me before we get into like actually like the final results and matches, but so you get the call you're going to Worlds as you arrive because it's set up differently than any other tournament that I've kind of
It really
witnessed
was.
for Underworld. So can you kind of walk me through the format? Like, 'cause you guys played over what, 3 days?
Um, the event was actually spread out over 4 days. And I can't help but the top 8 format. I still don't understand that one. But I can walk you through the pool play. So the 18 players that we had were split up into 2 pools. We had a pool of 10 players and a pool of 8 players. And everybody was randomly matched up and into our matches. They were trying actively not to pair up people from the same country. So if there was another option of somebody to pair to, they were pairing with not in country. So there was some shifting around in the pool play with some of the pairings so that countrymen weren't playing each other. Uh, but we did a 5 round event basically for the first 2 days in that pool play. And we were actually playing 3 games every match. It was still a best of 3, but we were playing all 3 games so that the tiebreakers had a chance to actually matter, because if you knock somebody out 2-0, only going to have 2 games worth of glory. Whereas if you do play all 3 games, you're going to have a equal number of games with an equal number of results to be able to pair the tiebreakers. So then they basically took the top 4 players from each pool, and that became the top 8.
Okay. And then they played over the next 2 days.
And then they played a double elimination top 8 over the next 2 days.
Okay.
And
Yeah.
there was some weirdness with how that happened. Like it was like if you immediately won 2, you went into this bracket, and if you were still 1-1, you went into this bracket. And then there was there was this thing called a deaths match, and that the undefeated player went all the way over to the final, and then the winner of the deaths match ended up playing in the final.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
it was I didn't
Yeah.
understand how all of that was
It's just,
happening, but it was a
double
little bit
elimination to get to the
convoluted.
bed.
Yeah.
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 So round 1 you'll have 4 winners and 4 losers, and
Mhm.
then so you split into a winners bracket and a losers bracket after that.
Yep.
And then the winner of the ultimate result is that the winner of the winners bracket plays the winner of the losers bracket with,
I think
as you
so.
said, some shenanigans in the middle to make sure that everybody gets double eliminated
Yeah.
till
Yep.
you get to the top.
Cool. It's interesting. I really found it interesting that you had to play all 3 games. Like, I thought that was a nice twist. And when the information was first kind of starting to leak out, it was like, why do they need like 17 hours to play one game? And then once we found out this format, um,
We definitely
did.
had enough time to play our entire match, all 3 games, and then like take a nap for like an hour, and then go eat a meal for 2 hours, and then come back, and we were still half an hour early. So
I, I I wonder if that was to time the Underworld's rounds with the 40K and AOS rounds.
it definitely was, because
Yeah.
they had they did have a representative from Best Coast Pairing, there to coordinate all of the different game systems and everything into Best Coast Pairing, so that they could send out pairings all at the same time for all of the different game systems that they had running. So that was definitely part of it.
So, just walk me through the actual um, event hall or hotel that it was all in. Like, did it feel like a GW sponsored event? Did you feel special when you walked into it?
Oh, I actually did. Like, you came down the escalator. You had to walk through a education convention to be able to get to the Warhammer thing because they keep us in the basement.
Now we're
Uh,
talking.
There we
Education
go.
convention. Sign me up.
Exactly. Everybody's in like nice suits and everything, and then you have a whole bunch of war gamers wearing strange jerseys and cosplay outfits, going down the escalator through the other convention, and you are immediately met with like a 12-foot tall space marine, like right at the bottom of the escalator, and they had a very well stocked store that was out front where you could, of course, buy event T-shirts, and they had a very well stocked collection of like miscellaneous miniatures that may have been hard to find. I don't know too much about 40K and AOS miniatures, but they had a whole bunch of the smaller like hero miniatures that were all stacked up everywhere. And then, so you walk past that and you go into the actual hall that all of the games were in. There was a whole section of streaming tables where they had all of the Kill Team, 40K, and AOS streamers set up. They did not have a streamer table for Underworlds, though. We were
Next
very
year.
sad. Yeah,
Next
next
year.
year.
No, come on,
Next year.
Jerod, get on it.
So we once, and there was a big table with several flat screens that had that had the streamer tables displayed on them, so you could actually watch some of the top games on the big screens while they were happening without doing the awkward standing over somebody's shoulder thing to be able to watch the game. And there was a large section for 40K, large section for AOS, and Kill Team and Underworlds was like packed over in the corner a little bit because we don't take we don't take up near as much table space as the big systems. So we had our own little section, but it was nice tablecloths and numbered tables, and the Kill Team tables had all of the terrain on them. And there were quite a few tables in the room. It was a fairly large event with, I forget what the total number of countries was, but there when they were reading off each country so that you could come up and get your challenge coin and everything, it was a good 25-30 minute long presentation to read through all of the countries that were actually there, and it was a lot. And
That's really cool.
it, there was lots of people from everywhere. I think the number was only 30% of the event was actually Americans.
That's cool. So
That's awesome.
if it was that big, like that big of an event, that many people traveling in, do you know, was there any after hours like events or scheduled things that they had for people to socialize and mingle with, or was it just kind of like go back to the room and get some sleep?
They basically had a full blown like social schedule after games would end. Each day we would play till about 7 o'clock or so.
Uh huh.
And then after that, they had the painting competition, and then they had just a get together, meet everybody event before the reveals, because they did have some reveal events that were at like midnight. So that everybody around the world could watch the big reveals. But like it was a full blown event. It wasn't just everybody hiding in their hotel rooms. They had things going on throughout the evening. Um, I myself rode the MARTA train back home for a hot meal and actually some sleep.
Right.
because I had to get out of bed at about 5:30 to ride the MARTA train into town so that I could be on time.
Yeah.
So
Understandable. I get it. I just think it's really cool because with it being their sponsored event, and all of these people that are going, really being champions or top tier players of the game that they're there representing. It's really cool to see that there was some mingling events, so to better the community and better interaction. I love to hear that, and I'm very, very envious that I didn't get to go and partake in some of those. So we kind of got the logistics, big event, well put on by GW. You spoke about, your first day was rather good for you. Like, any particular highlights in those games that you played that day that you want to talk about with the listeners, or things that you learned because you only played this list like 3 times before the event?
my first match made me chuckle because there were 2 Crimson Court players at the entire event, and my first match was a mirror match.
With
Oh,
Void
nice.
Cursed as well.
No, he was not.
Okay, all
We
right.
both chose 2 different rivals decks.
That's
He
cool
was
though.
playing Tooth and Claw. The first game, I just got trounced. Like, he just rolled right over me. And second game, I won barely. And third game, again, won barely. And ended up winning the match. And it that trend lasted the rest of the day, where I just got rolled over my first game of the match, and then made a comeback for the second 2. So the that was kind of what I learned about my deck, was into these hard aggro decks, because my first 2 matches were Tooth and Claw and Breakneck Speed. So into those really heavy aggro matchups, I need to deploy deep. I need to do the counterpunch. I need to let them use their resources to come to me, so that I can have a little bit of time to score those Death's Domain and make those counter charges, that I can really take advantage of my positioning rather than having to react to what they're doing to me. So that was what I learned in those first 2 matches, and I'm glad that I learned them. And then on day 2, I ended up facing aggro again. It went better, but counter aggro doesn't work very well if you don't roll any hits.
The
So,
dice failed you.
Yeah.
oh yeah, I had
So
2 sets of dice, and both of them were garbage.
what you mentioned Breakneck Slaughter. What was the warband that was running that one?
Mad Mob.
Mad.
It
So
was a
you
Interesting.
okay.
it was a very, very tough match. The pilot of this particular deck is another online player that I've played many times, both on webcam games and on other avenues. And uh, I he was one of the people that saw my face at the beginning of the event, and goes, "Of course, it's you." And then sits down across the table for me. I'm happy to see you, man, but I'm not happy to see you sitting over there. So, it worked really well. Mad Mob has a lot of wounds, and it was a very like the first game, he just could not miss. So my guys just evaporated at that point, but he fell into a little bit of a 50-50 of being able to hit me in the latter 2 games, and I was able to capitalize on some of those misses a little bit. It was a very tough match because Mad Mob has such a good objective pool, and Breakneck Slaughter actually really helps build that reliable objective pool for a pure aggro business into somebody. I'm actually surprised that he didn't do better, because that deck was very good.
Okay, awesome. So you mentioned day two. So day one, we're like 2-1 and 2-1, so that's good. Day two, more aggro. So you actually got Narrow Spirit Pack. Did they actually
Yep,
fit a
I
flex?
got
Okay.
Gnarl Spirit packed. The my third opponent for the event was Damien from Canada, and at the end of the first game, I believe I had one of his fighters dead. And that fighter did not die until the third activation of round three.
Oh wow.
So, and as a testament to my poor deck, I still scored 12 glory in that match. Without killing a single fighter until round three. It was he had built his deck very defensively. He did a fantastic job of taking advantage of Lupin and his defensive rerolls. He kept Lupin where I couldn't get at him very well, and he also kept Lupin in a cover hex, so he was just nearly impossible to actually hit. Um, and that enabled him to use his fighters to the best of their ability to hit me, and I was having trouble hitting him, and well, he won because he was able to score the majority of his deck just by doing what Gnarl Spirit Pack do. It great match. I had fun in that one because it ended up being very close in a couple of the games within like 3 or 4 points of each other. Um, and it's always nice to have a cool opponent like that. That's like, wow, your deck is really confusing to play against. And I was like, yours too. I can't quite figure out what Gnarl Spirit Pack's trying to do with this one. So
That's awesome.
I was happy to see Gnarl Spirit Pack not just being played how they used to be played, just all out run in. There's definitely some finesse with some of the more recent iterations of that deck.
Yeah, that sounds good. I mean, so 3 games, but fairly aggro in those first 3 games. You mentioned kind of in your opening segment here about you were preparing for the ping meta. Like, why do you think you didn't see the ping meta? Like, is it as scary as everyone says? And then we go to Worlds and there's like no ping meta other than a couple war bands.
I was very surprised by the lack of warbands. I th- there was still Domiton, there was still Ephelum, but I was surprised that there were not near as many of those warbands as I thought there were going to be. There were only 2 Domiton players, and I believe I think 3 Ephelum players
Yeah, I
out
think there's
of
3.
18 people. So I was surprised that there wasn't more. I was also surprised that not near as many people took Force of Frost as I thought that they were going to. I believe. Let's see here. Uh,
I think there was one.
I think only 3 of those players of those warbands actually took Force of Frost.
I thought there were,
If
I don't know. I haven't
it
gone
was
through them
either
all
three
yet.
or four. It was either 3 or 4 of them took Force of Frost, but I don't think anybody else did. Um, which was actually surprising. Which brings me to my fourth opponent, a fine gentleman from France, and his name was Cyril, and he was actually playing Force of Frost with Ephelum.
Okay.
And that was actually a really fun match because he can pilot good, and he ended up facing Aman in the final at after the fact, and we had some close games that came down to a couple missed attacks here and there. I did take 1 game off of him on tiebreakers, but it was that warband is can fall apart if you kill too many changers early, but I it's still a very good reliable deck because their scoring is very difficult to stop unless you can take Ephelum out of business early in the game.
And why didn't you do that?
Spawn Mall.
Yeah.
So Cyril did an excellent job of screening Ephelum with his changers. He did a very, very good job at that. It was very difficult to jump his lines to be able to get back there, and he was using a lot of the Force of Frost upgrades to benefit. He wasn't just throwing them on Ephelum. He was throwing the -1 damage on some of the smaller guys to keep the smaller guys alive, so that I couldn't get to his big player back there casting spells.
Okay. Yeah, that makes
Yeah.
sense.
Yeah, like I mean, a decent strategy there is to throw the -1 damage from Force of Frost, and then the heal upgrade, right? Like after
Right,
this fighter takes a damage, heal this fighter. So you're effectively getting -2 damage as long as they aren't dealing the killing blow. And
exactly.
then if you want to be ridiculous and throw that on Kindlefinger, you're getting effectively -3 damage, which is
Yeah, and then even if it does go through, you can resurrect them, right? Hopefully,
right.
you get the card, bring them back.
Yeah, yeah.
Yep.
Yeah,
So
definitely
I'm
tough
I'm gonna
pairing.
I'm gonna do a brief interlude here. So we have all of the top 8 decks from champs in the Nemesis library already. And of the top 8, 2 were running Force of Frost, first
Yep.
and second place. So Amon's World Championship winning Dumatan Stormcoven with Force of Frost, and then Cyril's second place Ephelum's Pandemonium with Force of Frost. And then, I mean, we won't go through all of it here, but you can go to the Nemesis library and see the rest of the split. But yeah, only 2 Force of Frost in the top 8 for what that's worth.
And some of those other decks were very interesting decks. My personal favorite was G's Razors. He used the Void Cursed Thralls, and I was watching him expertly maneuver Sereni into Hammertide position using the refashioned reactions
Oh, smart.
and refashioned priorities. So somebody would try to move out of their lane, and he would just use one of those to like move right back, so that he could keep hammer tiding people. I didn't think of that, but he used it very expertly in his matches. I was very entertained watching him pull off several upsets with by doing that. It was really fun.
So, yeah, I mean I didn't even honestly I didn't even think about that even after I saw the deck. Yeah, that is a cool interaction and a good way to make sure you get 1 damage across the board. That's really cool. So that my question still remains, and I mean this could be open to either one of you. Is like after like we look at the worlds or you're in worlds playing, is ping what we should be scared about, or are there tools to get around it?
Personally speaking, the ping is scary, um, but I don't think it's near as much of the boogeyman as some would have that opinion. And I think the passive scoring potential of the Force of Frost deck is far scarier than the actual ping damage, because those decks are able to score very passively, and that draws you in because you have to interact with them to be able to stop that passive scoring. And then the ping is just salt in the wound at that point, because they're going to ping you going into you, and then they're going to be able to finish you off very easily once they get to you. So
Okay,
unless you can do that quick coup d'etat to their leader that is packing the ice counters, it's not going to end well for that fighter that you send into the mix.
and that's probably why we see a number of void curse thralls, right? Because you get extra movement, and
Yep.
to be honest, I was very surprised with warband selection and just how aggro it was, and it was all fast aggro. So
Yep.
Yeah. Well, I mean, if people are anticipating something passive, fast aggro is the only way to really counter that.
Very true.
So
So
yeah,
into day two, like a tough matchup. Is that where it all ends? You're done after 2 days.
I that is where my competitive journey ended.
Uh huh.
After the top eight was removed, we actually had 2 more days of play that we were able to take part in. That was earning points for our country. So one of the really neat things with this World Championships of Warhammer event is all of the game systems were taking their scores from everyone. Every single player that was in that hall was earning points for their country. And there were rules. I forget what they are off the top of my head, but each country could choose a number of people from their country to provide points for their country, and those were all compiled. So there was actually a leaderboard for how each country was doing based on what games were going around. And Underworlds was actually very important in that because I'm not sure who came up with the World Championships of Warhammer country rules, but after about 4 matches of Underworlds, everyone had maxed out points
Oh wow.
for the world stuff because if you scored more than I believe we did the math of 6 glory per game. You were getting max points
interesting.
by the end of the event. So that that helped the countries that had Underworlds players are quite a bit in the country rankings. But so we actually did get to play all 4 days, and so everybody in the losers bracket got to play a minimum of 8 matches.
That's
Um,
awesome.
so it was a lot of fun. A lot of fun.
So did this whole experience getting to go to Worlds, does it fuel the fire for this coming year to maybe go to a different event and qualify for it again?
I would love to. If my
Yeah.
wife will allow me to leave my children for an entire weekend, I would love to. I am also looking to see if we can't get I organize my local events, and I've been trying to make introductions to see if we can't get one of these golden tickets in the southeast. Um, so I've been talking to some folks. So I would definitely keep your ear to the ground for any announcements uh, in the coming future for events in the southeast for a golden ticket for 2024 because they have said that they're doing it again.
That's awesome. So I just got to go buy a Wonka bar.
That's right.
It,
So
something like that.
speaking of other events, like in you hosting, isn't there one coming up in a couple weeks here?
There is one. I'm not sure if it's actually going to happen because it was the ticket prices hurt the turnout, I believe,
Okay.
with it.
Okay.
But Warzone Atlanta is hosting a big tournament in Atlanta. And right now, there's not much interest from the Underworlds community because $70 is a lot for a Underworlds ticket, unfortunately.
For me, it's just the time of the year. I
Yeah,
got
that
big
too.
work. I got big work stuff the next weekend. So
Well,
Yeah.
and everybody's saving up for Christmas, and
yeah.
it's literally, let's see here, a week after Thanksgiving. Everybody's tired from traveling and everything, and it's probably not the best time of year to be holding a big event like that.
Yeah, it's tough. But
Yep.
all right. So if you had to do it all over again, let's say like you go, you win another event, you make it to Worlds. is Crimson Court Void Curse Thralls what you take, or do you go a different way?
I should have brought Soul Raid.
Okay.
There are probably a lot of people that are wondering why, like, because there wasn't any Soul Raid, was
There
there?
was no Soul Raid.
And they're
They're
so good
good.
as long as you can manage that shoal token.
Yeah, I have a lot of experience with Soul Raid, and I was literally doing this number with both of I'm holding my hands up in front of my face in case you can't see on radio. But I had my tried and true Soul Raid deck that I've been playing for the past year, and I haven't completed painting my Soul Raid, and I would have had to like speed paint for a week trying to get Soul Raid ready. And I was like, I have this Void Curse Thrall's Vampire deck that actually works really, really well. I was worried about the ping meta. This was before the warband lists leaked, and I was worried about the ping meta because it kind of tears up Soul Raid with all those 3-wound fighters. So,
Yeah.
I should have taken Soul Raid because I feel like they would have had a lot more play into some of the more passive builds. And I also feel like they have a much easier time handling Gnarl Spirit Pack.
Yeah.
Because of some of the more control aspect cards like Cloud of Midnight and Spinefin Toxin and other cards like that, I feel like they have a little easier time into some of the more heavy aggro, and they also have that double the move then charge thing to be able to make it to the more passive folks that are hiding in the back. So in hindsight, should have taken Soul Raid, but
What would
it
your pairing been? Delvers?
Toxins.
I think it probably would have been Toxins at this point because the passive folks are going to be covering up those objective tokens faster than I can get a fish on it.
Yeah.
Had I had some of those passive builds not come out beforehand, I probably would have done Delvers because that Delvers deck that I know I played into you once, Jason, that you've absolutely rocked, was it does not do well if my opponent is actually trying to hold objectives in their own territory. If they're trying to move towards me, it works a lot better because that fish is just a Delver point or exploration point generating machine.
Yeah.
Well, interesting. Well, maybe next time you can paint up your little fishman and crab and go out there and win it all. So what's next? Like, did anything at the event pique your interest that you're looking forward to playing, or maybe you just haven't, got into Death Gorge yet? Like, what warband or deck do you really want to dive into next?
So I really really like Sereni's Razors. They interest me, and I feel like they're also in that happy point where I don't think anybody has cracked the code, and they seem to be a little bit more difficult to play. So from a tactical challenge standpoint, I that's one that I'm interested in. Uh, and the models are also really cool looking. I mean, the squid, the squid is awesome. And I also really like the jellyfish on Sereni's model, but it's but that warband has a lot of really interesting tools, and it could also work with a couple of different of the rivals decks. We all know G's Void Curse Thrall's deck did really well. I'm toying with one with Fearsome Fortress actually, which seems kind of weird with them, but there's so much stagger built into Fearsome Fortress that I feel like there's something there.
I could see that. Yeah, most
Yeah.
definitely. Well, good. I mean, that I think that pretty much wraps up the experience. It sounds like it was a fantastic 4 days of Underworlds with some great event hosts. And you know, I think my last question would be, just because you have been such an online presence for this game. I mean, you and I, we've talked 3-4 years now. And yes, I've met you on camera, but for a lot of people there, that's been your only interaction in the online community. And most of these people are very active online. So that had to be really cool to meet a lot of the people you've been playing with really all the way through COVID.
Oh, I would probably say 3/4 of the folks that were at this event have some sort of online presence. I was able to meet almost the entire Canadian team is active on online.
Yeah.
So I was able to meet David, Yuri, Derek, all of these guys that traveled down for this event because the Canadians kind of rated our tickets a little bit.
They did.
Uh, and then it was really cool to see the guys from across the pond as well, because there was two guys from the Netherlands that made the trip, and Val with his Mad Mob was one of them, and then Jan surprised everybody with the Gore Chosen that made the top 8, and there were a handful of other folks as well that I also like. I played games with them for years through COVID, and it was really nice to like introduce myself in person. And there was also that moment right when everybody started getting there, and they're like, "Who's this guy?" "Oh, it's the guy that they brought in to balance the numbers." "Well, what's his name?" "Oh no, I recognize this name. This just got a lot harder." So I ended up
That's
not doing
awesome.
too well, but it was a lot of fun meeting everybody and being able to shake hands in person instead of just saying hello across the microphone.
Yeah, it's awesome. Again, I'm very obvious. I'm glad that you were able to take part in that. Thanks to GW for putting it on. Thanks for the Underworld's community coming together and making those travel plans. I know that some of them had golden tickets, but it's still like taking the time away to play a game that we all love and the game that we've been playing for a very long time here. So to get that many top tier competitive players together to really duke it out over a weekend sounds like it was just the best time. I look forward to qualifying this year with my one chance at Nova. So, I mean, with that, Jerod, anything else?
No, I mean, yeah, I think you covered it all. So yeah, I think we'll take a break here and we'll come back with the outro. And we're back, and that will wrap up the 55th episode of the Battle Mallet podcast. At the start of the outro, we just want to again say congratulations to Aman from Path to Glory for winning the whole thing, for being the heavyweight champion of the world, to throw things back to the WCW reference that we made with when we were with Zach. But
yeah, congratulations, Aman. Definitely a lot of wins on his belt now, a lot of those notches. So glad he could take it home and add the first worlds to that pedigree. So
yeah. So even though Canada came down and bombed all of our events and took all of our golden tickets, USA ended up winning it. So thanks for repping us there, Aman. And a hard fought battle. Like if you look at the field, if you look at the roster, like I am sure that I have lost to probably 70% of those people in various forms of online play. So
yes, same here. I think I probably would have went 0 for the century against that.
Oh yeah,
lineup,
I would have been happy to win one round, I think. So just again, congrats, Aman. Kudos to you. I'm sure that we're going to hear about your experience and Mark's experience on the Path to Glory. So you guys keep an eye out for that. And then in terms of shout outs, the other thing that we do want to announce with regards to Zack Newcome is that he has been in conversations with Frontline Gaming about the Cherokee Open, which is February 23rd through 25th. he has been talking with them about taking on running a Warhammer Underworlds tournament there. The issue that they have is that they need a certain amount of interest before they'll put tickets on the roster. So if that is something that is of interest to you, so the Cherokee Open, it's in Cherokee, North Carolina. And according to their website, this retreat style event perfectly blends community and competition into an epic weekend of fun. When you are not rolling dice, you and your buddies can relax and enjoy this beautiful resort, which has everything from bowling alleys, bars, and a fireside patio to a large casino and plenty of places to fill your belly. So it sounds like it is not your typical gaming convention where there's going to be a ton of vendors and stuff. It really is going to be like play your games and then enjoy the scenery, whether that's casino, that's the mountains, that's, food, whatever the case is.
Yeah, it's Cherokee, so it's a mountain retreat. It's a beautiful venue, beautiful area. So if you can make that, get in touch with Zach, let him know you're interested, so we can try to make this a full-fledged event.
Yep. He is really easy to find on Discord. His handle is Zack Newcome. So if you are a member of our Discord, if you're not, you should join. There's a link in the show notes. Or a member of any of the other various Underworlds Discords, you should be able to find him there. So with that, we are two ever hopefuls for golden tickets. Eyes on the prize for WCW 2024.
My one shot that will be Nova this coming year, if I can make that.
That's right.
If I don't TO it.
Yeah, right. Well, if you TO it, then no. Anyway, this is Jerod signing out.
And I'm Jason Table Newmurray. Get the hell out of here.
Peace.
Go Bills.
The Battle Mallet podcast is protected under the Creative Commons license. If you have further questions as to its use, you can find more information via links on podcast.battle-mallet.com. Music by Anno Domini Beats.
Well, yeah, I mean, when we were talking about WCW, I went with Sting. I should have went with Ric Flair.
But see, this is where it gets confusing, is because, like, through the 90s, like, people were weaving in and out, because I remember watching Ric Flair when he was in WWF. Anyway, this is not a professional wrestling podcast, so we don't have to go down on that. But I will throw out who I thought about after the fact, and that was Diamond Dallas Page. And I'm not sure he ever crossed over from WCW. That's right. Yeah, we're both throwing up the diamond symbol with our hands right now. So there's a throwback. I think he may be the only one that didn't cross from the WCW to the WWF. Anyway, somebody fact check me on that on this Underworlds podcast that probably no one knows who the heck we're talking about. So for the Battle Mallet podcast, we are two aspiring heavyweight champions of the world.
Listen, I'm the heavyweight. All
right, fine. I'll be I don't even remember what they called those. Rey Mysterio, what was his weight class?
Featherweight, welterweight. I don't know.
Well, yeah. Ramble on. We just need to get a hold of the book that she reads in.
Yeah. Oh, there's a whole wiki on it.
Oh, there is. Yeah.
Sure. Known jokes in the book.